Hey, gals, guys, and otherwise, this is Jonathan O. Roselion.
And I'm Noah, also known as Polyphonic, and you're watching Horns and Wings, also known as the Fard Radio Hour. This is the podcast where we talk about Saga, the greatest comic ever made. And yeah, what's going on, John? How's things?
Pretty good, especially since we're going to be talking about issue number 20. And hey, Noah?
Yeah?
Hey, Noah?
Hey, John.
Hey, Noah, you want to do some drugs?
Oh, I've already done some drugs.
Oh, fuck.
By which I mean I've drank half a beer, so I mean technically alcohol's a drug, right?
No, this is an intervention, but also a podcast. We got to do the podcast, too. Let's dive in.
All right, so what's on the cover?
What is on the cover? It is, oh my gosh. Really quick. This is probably my favorite solid color choice that I've seen so far.
Yeah, the like sea foam.
It's like just a really nice like sea foam mint.
Yeah.
And especially, I just realized this. This is probably why it's pandering to me. I had sort of like the aesthetic for my wedding. If you didn't guess, I'm kind of obsessed with aesthetics and just colors in general. And I did pretty much all of the design for my wedding, and we went with like a 1920s theme, and the color scheme was white and mint, and then gold accents, and that is all prominent on this cover. I guess you can't really see the white unless you're the logo is white. So I'm guessing that's not on your version of it.
No, it is not. Though they're also like the bandages on Marco's face are off-white, eggshell, I might say.
Yeah. But yeah, this is
you didn't describe the.
Yeah, no,
all you
I'm
described
gonna
is
keep
the
going on
color
this
of
for
the
a bit. I'm
background.
gonna keep going on this for a bit. They could figure it out through context clues. We're doing this old school like first 3 episodes style where we don't actually describe anything, and we only do tangents. Now it is Marco in his bandaged disguise, and then on his shoulder is a laughing Hazel holding this gold foil star balloon. And the thing that really struck me about this is if you just really like looking close at that star balloon, like you can see just how sort of it's the thing that impresses me most about Fiona Staples' painting style is that they're pretty like it's still very sort of loose lines and very very sort of just like it's pretty scratchy, the details on the lines here, but then it's just like the macro, like when you look at it, like if you zoom back a bit, it is so accurate and so like so perfectly realistic, and I feel like that applies to literally all of her art. But the line she walks with her sort of avoiding that uncanny valley and getting this hyper realism and hyper believability, but still there's this sort of cartoonish and scratchy quality to everything is so goddamn impressive.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And even like the same, I'd say the same about like Hazel's face in this.
Yeah,
it's very cherubic, but it also like in the macro looks very real. Right?
It's sort of Norman Rockwell-esque.
Yes,
to me.
Very much so. Yeah, with the sheen on the cheeks.
Yeah.
I also just generally I love this cover because this is like just like vintage Saga cover, right?
Oh, yeah,
like you've got the distinct colored background. You've got characters looking heroic as fuck. It's really like this is kind of in the catalog of like the different like genres of Saga cover. This is like vintage Saga cover. This is what you think of when you think of a Saga cover.
Absolutely, especially since like it's just a dude holding his kid too. I feel like with any other artist, like they're not going to knock it this far out of the park given that prompt. And this is honestly like best case scenario for how this sort of cover could turn out.
All right, and then we open the page, and what do we see, John?
Just a normal weeknight for me, really.
Yeah. I was gonna say we do see the most Canadian character we've seen to date.
So to give that some context, we see Prince Robot. He is sitting on a fancy purple couch, and there are 3 women surrounding him, all varying levels of naked.
Jack White has a song called 3 Women where he says, "I've got 3 women, red, blonde, and brunette."
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe these 3 women, John?
Oh, I have 3 women, green, beaver, and multi-boobed.
Nice, excellent. Yeah, I think that makes just as catchy of a song.
I think that was the demo. I think that's how the demo went.
Yeah. So that's a green winged woman sucking his finger.
Mm-hmm.
The woman that we've actually seen before, the like snaky multi-boob, I don't even know what to call her, sucking his...
Her name's Multi-Boobs.
Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, tonguing his neck with a very long...
Oh, that's a very long tongue.
Tongue? And then we have a beaver that it is unclear. She is presumably performing fellatio on him, but maybe she's just licking his taint. We don't know.
There might be some kind of medical exam going on here. And he's saying more. Very quietly, a lot of ellipses.
And also his screen is white noise.
Yep. And this is the first time we've seen him since he rebooted, right?
Yep. Do we who's got the scene? Do you want to take the scene or should I? I'm sure you've planned it out.
I have not, but I will take it because it's a good.
All right.
So we cut from him saying more to him looking at, there's an eyeball just sort of mounted in the top corner of the room like a security camera. And he says to the eyeball, "I know you are watching me and I want more." And we cut to the security room and we see good old everyone's favorite Mama Son, that piece of shit, who's watching the feed from his room, and says to her little, I guess, lizard, like sort of dragon lizard sidekick, "You heard the man send down another 3 associates, sales associates," which is a great term for prostitution, and the lizard buddy is saying that maybe we should tell someone that he's here, and maybe we shouldn't let him stay much longer because he's a missing person, and holds up a copy of the hebdomadal, saying with a picture of Princess Robot and the new baby, and it says, "It's a boy, but where's Dad?" And he says, you know, he's got a newborn at home, so maybe we should tell him to get out of here. And Mama Son points out, "No shit, that's probably why he's here." And ends the scene by saying, "Nothing drives a man to new pussy faster than seeing a kid come out of the old one," which is the most like, now
cynical
I'm
worldview you've ever seen.
Well, yeah, absolutely that. But also, like, I'm now so tuned into what is transitional narration for Brian K. Vaughan leading into the next scene, and considering we just left off with some hinted at sort of relationships falling apart, and that being the, like, we pan back and get this transitional dialogue, I'm very nervous now going into this next scene. But let's talk about this one first.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't talked about like Mama Son too much, have we? Because there's something I don't think we've talked about this. Do you know the term Mama Son?
No.
So mama-san was a term used by Japanese soldiers, or not Japanese soldiers, U.S. soldiers fighting in the Pacific Theater in World War II. And also it kind of extended to U.S. soldiers in the Vietnam War, but basically talking about a term to refer to a madam who runs a brothel.
That makes sense.
Like the Japanese suffix like san, which is an honorific, right?
Yeah.
Next to yeah. So mama son is a mama son, which is just like a brilliant pun of a name. It's fantastic if you get it, but also if you don't get it, it doesn't feel forced or anything. Like she wears a sun mask. Mama son just feels like,
yeah,
I don't know, it feels like something that just works in this universe.
That is fantastic.
So once again, that's Brian K. Vaughan's ability to slip some cultural references in kind of secretly, even though this is a completely different universe, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that's had me like, I'm anytime some sort of proper noun sticks out to me, I am immediately Googling it now. And it has resulted in so many fascinating things. Yeah, that's really cool.
I think the other thing I want to talk about here is before you pull out to Mama-san or Mama-san, fun fact, I learned about that from Straight to Hell by The Clash has a line about
oh shit, yeah.
Papa-san, Mama-san, yeah.
Yeah.
But I love that, and maybe this is just me because I've read this a bunch, but I feel like as soon as you see this opening splash, they've established the world so well, and I think a big part of it is the color palette, but also a bunch of weird things doing sex, that they don't need to tell you you're on Sextillion. This opening shot, you just know you're there because it's such a memorable planet, right?
No, yeah, they don't even, I don't think they even, oh no, he does, the guy does say mama son, but yeah, there's not really any effort to get you back up to date with where they are, because it is probably the thing that is the most burned into your brain at this point.
Exactly. And I think that goes to what we've been speaking of, like again, like so many things would have had a text box establishing like somewhere on Sextillion.
Yeah. I can hear the digital typing in my head right now.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, no, you know that. It shows you this scene. You've been to this memorable planet. The color palettes are the same. You pull out, you see a character that you know. You're just aware that it's Sextillion, even though Prince Robot has never interacted with Sextillion, right?
Yeah.
That hasn't been part of his story.
You know, hey, this is something that I want to pick your brain about this, because Haley did not know it, and I want to know if this is
something that Canadians don't know.
Not something that they say in Canada, but the fact that this woman is a beaver, and that, at least here in the States, beaver is slang for vagina.
Yes. Yeah, no.
Is that it?
Beaver, yeah. Yeah, no. People know that beaver is slang for vagina.
Because literally, they're like, I was hanging out with Haley and her friend, and I made a reference to that, probably because beaver comes up organically in Canadian conversation every 10 minutes.
We're just always talking about beaver.
Just beaver.
See, that joke becomes funny when you know that pun.
It's your main export, and so yeah, no, it's something that she was like, oh, I didn't know that, and I was like, how can beaver be so prominent in your culture and you not know this slang? But yeah, that's just a nice little touch, is that this illiteral beaver.
I think I learned that slang when I was like 13 years old, reading Breakfast of Champions by Kurt Vonnegut.
See, that's where it adds up.
Yep. Yeah, I actually hadn't considered that with that pun, though. That's phenomenal. There's just so many, like, little things that they slip in under the radar, and something that I love that Saga does, that I think there's a lot of things that are very good at clever jokes, but I feel like nowadays, especially with how kind of prevalent fourth wall breaking is, a lot of things try to draw attention to how clever they're being.
Yeah.
But Saga really doesn't most of the time.
Yeah, no, it's like, it's this nice little reward for paying attention and digging deeper, or even like just niche, like that Mama Son thing is such a niche joke. And that's one of those things, like I said, I generally look up things to see if they're references, and that felt so organic that it didn't even occur to me to look it up.
Well, this is the thing. It wasn't. I didn't really realize that until this kind of read through when I was reading, and I was like, Mama San, and especially saying the name out loud. I was like,
Right.
oh yeah, Mama San. Like,
Mama-san.
it's
Mama San, Papa San. Also, speaking of Canadian culture, my two favorite A&W burgers are the Mama San and Papa San. There's a niche joke for you.
Is A&W a Canadian thing?
You guys are the only ones that name it weird family members for all your foods.
Wait, back. So you guys have A&W.
We have A&W,
but there's not like a Mama Burger, Papa Burger, Teen Burger.
No, because I don't want to go to the fucking.
You don't want.
I don't want to go to A&W and be like
cannibal. You're not a cannibal.
I don't want to be like, give me the grandmother extra saucy, please. Like, no one. That's not appetizing. Even
don't be
remotely.
ageist.
Sorry, give me the teen. Give me a fresh. Oh, give me those. You know those buns are fresh on that teen.
Okay, no, that's worse. That's worse.
Don't be ageist. Oh no, yeah, no. I don't understand why it's a thing in Canada. But there's something else to learn. Hey, we're like 20 minutes into this. And that's scene one.
The one other thing I want to add on
Okay.
that scene is I just love the way that the screens, the like weird bubble screens.
Yeah.
In the background, you just see like things happening to Prince Robot, and you see actions, and they're like moving around on the screens. Because I feel like it would be so easy just to have those screens blank, and you'd like get the gist of it, right?
Yeah. No, it's and also just the design of those is very cool because it's like connected bubbles and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a cool thing. It's a cool way to do shit. I want that setup.
All right, should we go to the next scene?
Yes. No, please clear your throat before the podcast. As I keep telling you this.
No. So in case you didn't read the scene and you're wondering why I just made an unholy abomination of a noise, we open on a close up of Hazel crying, screaming, making whatever noise that I just made, but imagine about 4 octaves higher. And keep it so I'm just gonna establish here almost every panel in this scene, save for 3, has this rant going on.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that Hazel is standing on Marco's bed. Marco wakes up, says, Hazel, what's the matter? And then Isabel pops in, says that this is her breakfast screech. And then says, and Marco says it's breakfast. Where's Alana? Isabel says that she had to go to work and the sun's rising, so Isabel has to disappear. And then as Isabel is disappearing, she's trying to give Marco advice on how to make Hazel's waffles, and then she is sucked into Hazel's chest as Hazel screams. And we see we see Marco, as Hazel disappears, grab a little business card for Ginny's Tiny Dancers. Hold me closer.
Mm-hmm.
Who, Ginny, in case you forgot, is the kind lady, bat lady, did we decide? Yeah. The kind bat lady, without wings, though. Not a winged person, even though she's based on a bat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
Good observation there.
Marco grabs that, and we get some Hazel narration with, I know, I'm even annoying myself, so let's get to work.
Yeah, I sincerely think that this 2-panel, her screaming and then sucking in Isabel into her chest is probably the most visually comedic thing we have seen. Oh, it is at least up there with T-Rex. Dildo.
It is fucking hilarious. It is metal as hell in that one panel.
Because it's literally like her leaning forward and her arms are like clenched and wide, like just like ready to do like a fucking
It feels like
deadlift.
she's about to go Super Saiyan.
Yeah, no, and then she like shoots her head back and is screaming. It's like Isabella Dura, and it's so funny. And also, I think this is something that I learned making Specs, the short comic I did with Jessica Mao was the artist on that, and it was a comic where a rare comic for me where I don't say what happens in every panel and I let her pick out the panel layout, and it was a good thing I did because it made me realize how effective it is for a gag, like a visual gag, to keep the same shot from panel to panel, like to keep that exact same angle, which is what they do here. Because that would not play as well. Like just seeing that motion in your head does not register as well if you change the angle from panel to panel. So
that's very true. Yeah,
good comedic sense there.
I think generally this is a pretty straightforward scene. The other thing that I'll say is you can see the little wings on Hazel's back, and how would you describe these wings? I don't even know what kind of wings they are.
It seems like it's interesting because it seems like she has like double wings, and they're black, maybe crow wings. I don't know.
They almost look like mothy to me.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think generally pretty quick scene. Amazing the effect, how annoyed you get at the res, which is the entire point.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is kind of that's the kind of payoff you can get when you use sound effects pretty sparingly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, because you're so every now and then you get these, usually in action scenes, but they're still very kind of few and far between in Saga. So when you get a 2-page spread with that effect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times,
yeah,
it is like this constant reminder that if you've ever been around a crying child, feels exactly like that.
But also, breakfast screech might be the most relatable thing that this comic has done so far. And it endears me. This ironically endears me so much more to Hazel Hearn screaming annoyingly. But also, I want to point out on that a little factoid for you, a little trivia on that card for Ginny's Tiny Dancers. We see the address 1822 Rubia Lane, which Rubia is a flower type. So it works with gardenia. And I googled 1822 and got the result that
what happened in the year 1822.
Here's the relevant thing that ties this in. So I got the result for 1822. The Rocky Mountain Fur Company leave from St. Louis, Missouri, setting off a major increase in the fur trade. And we tie it back to beavers too. Look at that.
It's all cohesive. It's all tying together. St. Louis, genius. Beavers, the whole thing.
Can we just go like full like Under the Silver Lake like conspiracy shit with this comic where we're just I need some kind of map with threads on my wall by the end of this podcast.
Okay, well, you've already done that several times.
I have, but I'm gonna tie it all together. I promise you that. It all means something.
Literally just tie the threads together?
No, I'm going to tie the creators together. This is the end of my plot. And then have them explain it to me because I'm too stupid. That's that scene, Noah. Should we dive into the next one?
Yeah. I'm peeking forward now. You get a bunch of good long scenes now, and I get a short scene in between. So, we'll make this work.
All right. Well, these are two very good scenes, though. So we do our nice hard cut like we do every time we cut to the open circuit of just total non sequitur nonsense leading into a conversation, and it's Alana as Zipless saying, "Bitch, be professional about this," and it's her having a conversation in an office with, it looks like a what would you say, Roman soldier?
Yeah, definitely. It looks like a Roman soldier, but like a female Roman soldier in a video game.
Yeah, like scantily clad armor.
Yeah, with iron nipples on it.
Well, the Spartans fought naked, so This is actually historically accurate. No, she's talking to a Roman soldier in an office setting with a superhero in green behind the desk, which I'm just now realizing his hood and cape actually look a lot like the Will's, but different colored.
Oh yeah, it is a similar cowl.
Yep.
I believe that's the technical term.
Thank you, Noah. Really bringing in that superhero know-how into this comic book podcast. So they're arguing about the Roman lady just found out that Zipless makes double her money, and Zipless is angry.
You get yours, Zipless.
Zipless is angry that this worthless suckhole takes home half as much as I do, and it leads to an argument. And the Roman soldier sends like beams, like sort of. They look like like those old-fashioned like RKO radio tower beams out of her hands, sending Zipless flying out of a window and down to the street below, and then she lands on a mattress.
They reminded me of Banshee, like in the Marvel comics.
Yeah. That's exactly it. The things coming out of her hand.
Yeah, like the sound waves.
Yeah. So Zipless lands on the mattress. And her gargoyle boss seems to be treating her a bit better. Says, way to take a bump, Z. And we realize that the people here call her Zipless and don't know her actual name or identity. And we go to the changing room, the locker room, and the two other actors that were in the first scene we saw, the three-armed man and the pirate lady, are sort of theorizing about why Alana doesn't take off her costume in front of them. Three-armed man thinks that maybe she fought for the horns. Pirate lady says that she's an ex-freelancer, probably broke her contract after she slit the wrong guy's throat. Zipless points out, we're not soldiers, we're entertainers. And then, oh shit, what's her name? Yuma.
Yuma, as in 310 to Yuma.
Thank you. So 310 to Yuma comes in and says, like hell, we're drug dealers, and leads to a very good sort of pretty much monologue from Yuma as the two actors leave. And Yuma says that sort of gives an opiate of the people argument for what they do, where it's to pacify the angry and hopeless population. Alana points out that sure, maybe what they do with their shitty show, but there's great art that changed her perspective on life. And Yuma points out, and what did you do? Did you join a nonprofit organization, volunteer at a soup kitchen, or did you lock yourself in a tiny room, shut the blinds, and mainline every transmission like a junkie? So she's very much saying, like, you can't actually change the actions of people. You can just sort of momentarily change how they feel. And says that Oswald tried to change the world's with his novels, and all it got him was dead. And Alana says, if you really think that this is just, if they're drug dealers, why are you working here? And she says, because I adore drugs.
Fucking beautiful.
and this is Alana is like, hold up. You get high. And Yuma says, mostly on fadeaway. And I love, this is again Alana being my fucking favorite. She says, and no one told me, but I'm cool. I'm susceptible to peer pressure. And she says that she hasn't had a day off from taking care of Hazel for weeks. Or since Hazel was born, she hasn't had a single day off. And she wants to do drugs. And Yuma hands her, it looks like, what would you say, like a sort of mint candy bar thing that she's breaking.
Yeah, it looks like a chocolate bar, yeah. But yeah, it's like greenish, minty.
Yeah. And Yuma warns her, this isn't whatever Drek you may have sampled back in high school, Alana. Fadeaway is much stronger these days, and it hits a lot faster. And as she drops it into her mouth,
yes.
Alana says, this isn't my first time in the deep end of the And then we get this sort of montage. It's first just Alana staring quietly at us in the locker room, and then cut to Alana now stripped down to her bra, with surrounded by melting flowers and fire, and it seems like a marksman's target. And then Alana is now naked and surrounded by white with it's like a reverse night sky. It's white with black specks, shining specks, and she just says pouch. And then meanwhile the panel breakdown is like is separating more and more, so now it's broken into like a dozen different diagonal panels as she bites her finger, and then we get a fucking glorious splash page of her naked, drifting, sucking her thumb in a sort of fetal position, and is surrounded by just this liquid goo, golden goo that just spells out fuck yes. And it is the most vivid drug sort of depiction I have seen in a comic book ever.
If you are one of these people who listens along and doesn't read the comic, first of all, you should read the comic.
Yes.
But second of all, find this page spread.
Yeah.
Because it is fucking incredible.
It's so good. It's so good.
But I feel like before we talk in detail about this, we should talk about a lot. There's a lot to talk about in this scene.
Yeah.
And I think we should talk about it kind of from the beginning and then get to this, because there's a lot to unpack here.
Yep. I don't have much to say about the scene. It's very open circuity.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I love that this is like the third time we've seen the open circuit.
Yeah.
And we already, like, it is well established. By the time you read it, you're like, oh yeah, open circuit stuff.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, it's just so well established. The thing that I love about the scene is just Zipless's or Alana's as she's falling. I think that's phenomenal. I think that's just great cheap comedy.
Also, that's such a good transition, because we're seeing like the street below her that she's falling towards when she's falling.
Yeah.
But then we get the page turn, and it's her landing in sort of like the behind this, like the backstage, onto a mattress, and again, she's sticking a bit. Her shoe is sticking a bit out of the top of the panel, so you get that motion downward.
Yeah. No. The again, like we've said a lot, like the action of it, the action that Fiona Staples does, like you can feel the bounce of that mattress, and you can like hear the springs when she hits it, right?
Yeah. Also, I want to point out that like this whole open circuit scene there's not much to talk about, which means that it is perfectly representing what the open circuit is.
Yes.
Where it really is just like entertaining, meaningless fluff.
And I think that stems very well into this conversation. And this is a conversation that I really, really want to have, especially kind of as two people that make art that is consumed on a very public platform.
Yeah.
And that platform is full of a lot of easily digestible stuff. Let me say, John, are we drug dealers?
Hold on, let me come up with a really good joke about this.
It's going to sound really good when you spend 20 minutes thinking of a witty response and then edit it in post. So it sounds like you just like snap back.
Yeah, luckily I'm cutting all of this out, and I'm going to look really smart when I say, we're drug dealers if you call Viagra a drug. Thank you for sitting quietly with me for 20 minutes while I nailed that one out. Thank you.
That was my attempt at a slow clap.
No, I do. I love this. Fucking shout out to because the one thing, the closest we've gotten to criticism of this book is sort of the coming off as sort of self-aggrandizing, even though we agreed with it, with the whole argument of, oh, you should create something, and that's the radical pacifism. And then it's like, well, and then the book itself, like a few issues later, where it would have already been written, mostly, I mean, they did take the hiatus, but like just immediately questioning its own conclusion and keeping this sort of philosophical conversation as nuanced as possible is just like, oh no, that's all bullshit.
Yeah.
But I do think that Yuma kind of it kind of just ruins her own argument by bringing up Heist and saying that Heist is the argument against doing that. But he literally did change the world, at least for these two people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think maybe that's the answer we're looking for in it is,
Yeah.
even if you are just drugs to most people,
Yep.
if you make good art, it's going to mean something to some people and force those people to action.
Yep.
I find just generally rereading this arc, I have not read this arc. I mean, actually, I might have read it since I've been a YouTuber, but not since it's been like I've been as big and it's been as big a part of my life as it is. And it is really, really, the whole open circuit thing is really resonating with me. And I think it's really cool because really it is completely Brian K. Vaughan using Saga as an outlet to talk about the kind of struggles and self-doubt and all of the things that you question yourself about when you are for a living making art on a public stage, right?
Yeah. And I think that it's also, it's doing such a good job of that. I think that just the main thing is that there hasn't really been, especially with how massive this series is, they take advantage of that where any sort of philosophical claim or any sort of like personal issue can be so fleshed out and nothing is left shallow when it comes to like anything sort of morally important.
Yeah.
Like I love that because he could have just been like, okay, well, there's the theme of the book and creativity, and let's just leave that pristine, and like, oh, she's doing her dream job, so let's make her happy. Or it's just like, it's always finding that conflict wherever it can. And it's like this rabbit hole, and I think that's something that keeps you more and more invested. It's not that like, because with serialized things, you run into that Dragon Ball Z problem of like
just
okay,
dragging it out.
Yeah, just you have this like super extended thing that it's just long for the sake of being long, and then it's like, okay, we overcame this. But now the bigger thing who's stronger happens, and that's the sort of way of like maintaining stakes and maintaining investment. Whereas this, it is actually taking advantage of this long form medium and diving into things deeper. It doesn't just like it's not just like okay, we're done with that. Let's move on to the next thing. Like it does such a deep dive, and every character is going deeper and deeper into their own issues.
It feels like it does such a good job of asking a question, then giving an answer, and then that answer raising more questions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And just like you said, just self-examination. And I think especially this arc is especially interesting because I'm a big fan of anything metafictional, and this is clearly a very successful writer talking about the entertainment business. And this is a guy who like worked on getting a show done, did Under the Dome.
Yeah.
And like this is clearly someone within the entertainment industry kind of thinking about the entertainment industry. And I like this question of, are you just drug dealers? Maybe, but also, is that a bad thing? Like, I think it's such a, it would be very easy to, and I feel like the easy take that people do on this is, oh, well, television and simple entertainment rot your brains. But then it's like, Yuma's like, no, I adore drugs. Drugs are great. They help people escape, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I mean, I don't know if that's exactly the best mentality, but I also don't know if it's the worst. Actually, I know it's not the worst.
Yeah. No, it really also calls to attention, like, just reflecting on what this series is, because from this point at trade number 3, or we're on 4. We're on 4.
Four, yeah.
Like, there's no end in sight for this thing.
Yeah.
We only just now, like, within the last few months, got an end to this. It could have gone on forever, for all we knew. And by the, I mean, we know when it's going to end at 108, which is still massive. And
which
it
is like
actually
8 years down the line.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And it actually brings up a lot of this conversation itself about the drug dealing reminded me of like how weird it is that I love Saga so much, but it is doing the exact thing that made me abandon The Walking Dead. And I mean, a lot of Robert Kirkman stuff. Like I read a lot of Invincible, his superhero comic ongoing, which has a million omnibuses. And yeah, it's just one of those things where he would talk about like, oh, I want to do this until I die, which he obviously changed on. Like he shifted from recently because he ended both of those series pretty recently. But when he was doing them, he was doing it with the intention of it going on indefinitely. And it just made me realize, like, if that's his goal, and it's not necessarily, his goal wasn't necessarily to teach us a certain lesson or anything like that. Like, it is just to give us this never-ending thing, like Spider-Man and like a lot of the other superhero comics and stuff. Then that was the thing that pushed me away from it. It's just like, am I going to invest this much time on something that kind of feels, because of that, meaningless and just like a time suck? I brought it back to Saga, but Saga feels like Saga so consistently has so many things to say and feels so like motivated in its direction and so laser focused in such an odd way because it's such a sprawling story. That it has it. That's the question that made me make a whole video about it. Of like, how is this still so good? How am I still so addicted to this thing? When it feels endless.
Well, and I think this is the thing. I think Walking Dead is a really interesting comparison because I will kind of push back a little and say, I mean, I eventually gave up The Walking Dead, but I don't think you need an end to gain meaning. Like, I think what The Walking Dead does really well is it's kind of a series of social experiments, right? The comics, at least. I haven't watched the show, but the comics, it's kind of like basically almost like, at least in the early things, basically each trade is like, well, here's an example of a human society. Here's the good of how it functions in the first 4 issues. Here's the dark side of how it functions in the last 2 issues. But I think what's really compelling is that Saga is able to do that and able to explore these things. But I think this is kind of getting to what you were saying. It feels like there's purpose and like there's end in sight, even if it is meandering, even if we're like stepping away from a giant space opera to have an arc that thus far is just kind of like small family drama, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that separates Saga from Walking Dead, which, by the way, to qualify what I said a bit more, what really got me off of Walking Dead was my realization with Invincible, where it was just like, once I realized like, oh, I don't want to read all of Invincible, then I also decided like, yeah, I'm probably gonna ditch Walking Dead too, because they're so similar in my mind. But the difference in experience for me was that when I would finish an omnibus of Invincible, and I really don't want to dwell on shitting on anything, and that book is great at what it does, but I would realize like, that didn't really change me in any capacity. Like, that didn't change my perspective on anything. It was very fun and it was very entertaining. But that's it. And opposed to Saga, when I read Saga, like, I do feel like I'm growing with the people and I'm learning a lot of the lessons they're learning.
Absolutely. Well, and I think it's interesting though, because I think you're learning the lessons they're learning, but also the lessons they're learning are not like, it's not like Magic School Bus tell all, like, everything's great and we learned this big lesson. It's like, the lessons they're learning are like, hey, it's difficult to raise a child and
Yeah.
be a human in a world full of strife and conflict.
Yeah. Honestly, the thing I can compare it to most easily in that context is it's the same reason I love Steven Universe, where it's just like, oh, I'm learning how to be a better adult. Like I'm learning how to be just I'm learning the things I should learn as a human. And so yeah. That got surprisingly deep, but I think it covered it pretty well.
I figured this issue would get deep. Two more things before we move on to the we haven't even talked about her taking the drugs.
Oh.
One,
No, hold on.
have you watched?
Hold on. No, sorry.
Yeah.
You want to do some drugs? No? Or we can do some drugs?
We could do some. Not yet, though.
Okay,
Not yet.
okay. Fine. I just really want to do those drugs. No, okay. Yeah, no. It's fine.
First,
It's fine. I just really need those drugs. No. But go ahead.
First,
Go ahead.
I thought this was the intervention for me.
Yeah, it is. You need to give me all your drugs, Noah. It's for your own sake.
Have you seen Wet Hot American Summer?
Yes.
All of it, like the show and all that stuff?
I watched the original film and I have not watched all of the show.
Okay, I forget what this is in, but when Alana describes Filament City, filament, like an electrical light bulb's filament, my mind just immediately goes to the musical Electro City from Wet Hot American Summer.
It doesn't go to that what was that Bill Murray movie where it was like based off of a YA series where it's
Garfield.
like an underground city. It was Garfield. Okay, well now that we figured that one out. Wait, hold on. That was Garfield 3, an underground kitty. So that's not.
That's good. City of Ember. I googled Bill Murray underground city.
Thank you. Yeah.
Never heard of this.
Rightfully so. That's what it made me think of. I like your Wet Hot American Summer thing better.
I also just want to say, and this will be a fitting transition to the drugs, just the look on Yuma's face when she says, "Because I adore drugs," is so fucking perfect.
It's such a fuck yes. Tying
such
it into
a, like,
the splash.
Yeah, exactly. And also, she's just like in the rest of the scene, she's whatever, but you see that and it's like, oh, she's visibly high. She is very high as she's saying this.
Yeah. Which gives a lot of context to the conversation they're having, because it's a very high conversation.
Oh, it's yeah. John?
Then we do drugs.
Yeah, let's do some drugs.
No, let's do some drugs.
What's phenomenal about this is that this shows the power of having rules, because when you have rules and then you break them like this, it's so powerful. By which I mean Saga's rule of the five panel page,
yeah,
right?
Oh man, this fucks up their ratio so bad.
Yeah. And it does, but also it kind of doesn't, because it's kind of just like 4 panoramic panels, right? But when you have 19 issues of no more than 5 panels a page,
yeah,
and then suddenly you have a good reason to drop this break and to break this up into a much more kind of out there experimental paneling.
24 panels, by the way.
The impact of it is so severe, and that impact would not be the same if they had done like smaller panel things before and weird breakups. The reason this is so impactful, and the reason it feels like her dropping out of the world entirely, is it's breaking the visual. It's basically breaking the laws of physics of this world in a way, right? Like, you look at this world and it's a 5-panel world.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you've got 24 panels.
There's also such a immediate joy with so many of the reveals, like, oh, of course there's a gargoyle lady and stuff like that. Like, of course there's a mummy in the crowd. Few things bring me as much excitement and anticipation as like Saga doing drug sequences is just so fuck yes. And
this is the thing, like, going up to this point, you're like, I know I just like didn't expect it. Also, just because, like, things don't usually talk about drugs unless they're explicitly about drugs.
Yeah.
But I'm like Saga has explicit sex. It has brutal violence. I'm like, I don't know why some part of my mind just kind of figured drugs were off the table, right?
Yeah, no, it's which with the next scene, I'm going to talk about another way that it really turns the tables and keeps me invested in ways I did not expect. But yeah, no, it makes Saga is so good at doing something that makes absolute perfect sense for the series, but I never in a million years would have predicted it.
Yep, exactly.
Again, one of my a certain character reveal is character design is the
it's
pinnacle
coming.
of that, and
It's coming.
I'm dying
We're coming
for
up
it.
on it.
Dying for it.
It's interesting because I think to pull, and we've probably done this to death, but to pull a comparison to Game of Thrones, late season Game of Thrones did things that were unexpected but didn't make sense in the series.
Yeah, exactly.
Saga does things that are unexpected but make complete sense in the series and in the world and even in the characters. Like, this is the other thing too, is like, I would not believe it if in this situation, and this is the thing, I believe Brian K. Vaughan could probably craft a situation where I'd believe Marco being in a similar situation, but like right now, how Marco is in his arc right now, who he is, would not be doing this. But it is so believable for Alana to do this. It is so in keeping with, like, her character is kind of always established as this kind of consummate rebel, right?
Yeah. Oh, and then also, one dumb shit theory and one actually interesting one. So first of all, when she just says pouch, apropos of nothing, I do want to point out in the in her scene with the in the open circuit earlier in the issue, we do see some classic Rob Liefeld pouches, just a ring of pouches around the superhero's arm, and so I do like the idea of that just being like a random detail from her brain coming up. But the thing that I'm actually interested in, that's obviously the bullshit one. The thing I'm actually interested in is the fact that we get this sort of in that second panel or second group of panels, we get behind her some fire, like maybe an explosion.
Yeah.
And sort of this marksman's target. And I do want to point out something that we have not touched on because it has not been referenced outside of one scene, is the fact that she was a gunner and bombed a bridge and killed a shit ton of people. And,
I hadn't even fucking considered that.
Yeah, and so that coming up for her subconsciously is very interesting.
And I think this is, again, like power to Fiona Staples. As soon as you said that, I was looking at the panel, and suddenly, like, the look on her face seemed more traumatized than, like, anything else, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I think that is one of the powers of just, like, a blank face, is you can project what you want onto it.
Yeah, for sure.
I would also say, this is actually, to your point earlier of specs of having the same shot across several panels.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's, and this is not, I mean, it's kind of comic effect, but I don't even think it's like ha-ha funny. I think it's kind of clever funny, but it's more like just like emotional impact of it is it's a very raw way of doing it, and it does it very well, right? And also just to have her like stripped naked throughout it is like very good allegorical imagery, like.
Yeah. Also the fact that with that, keeping that same shot, we then, and this is getting very understanding comics, we lose all sense of time at this point.
Yes.
We lose, this could be in an instant, this could be over those 6 hours.
Yeah.
because like, we don't know if she's literally stripping down. We don't know in this, like, I think plenty of people would do, like, you know, maybe jump cuts of her, like a montage of her, like, stripping and like saying different random things and stuff and going through this whole experience. But the fact that they put us there mentally with just like, we just lose all concept of time and all concept of space, and it's just fucking happening.
And I think there's something that I think is really powerful is a lot of the time, like stuff that does drug stuff tries to be as trippy as it can and does kind of like goofy, wacky, trippy. And this totally does that. But the splash page is almost like, it's this like warm comfort of like being a child and being in the womb and like sucking your thumb in the fetal position, floating somewhere, right? That it just creates this. It's a very unique take on drugs that I think is a very authentic one. Like having, if you're listening, mom and dad or the law, just
Hey,
skip
the law,
the next
can you
15
just,
seconds
the
or
law,
so.
take off your headphones really quick. The law.
Yeah, you know, the law, Brian
we'll
Ferenzi's
back in.
character in VGHS.
Yeah,
No, but it taps into something about drugs that you don't see talked about much, right? And it makes it seem heavier and more serious than just, we're the trippy cartoon Beatles. You're gonna go on your LSD trip.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, drugs feel good. And that's something that you rarely see in
Hot
media.
take.
Hot take. And it honestly reminds me a lot of just seeing, like, that scene where Prince Robot's sitting on the toilet, where it's just like, oh yeah, you just don't see this in media, but it absolutely happens constantly. And it's just like, oh yeah, no, drugs feel good. And you know what, we'll see if this comic ends up being just a poster boy for drugs. But it's something that, like, go watch Requiem for a Dream. Why are these people doing this? It's a nightmare. I hate all of this. Don't do drugs. But this is just like, okay, whatever happens from here, I get her motivation for wanting to do the drugs, like, leading into doing the drugs.
And I think this is the thing. I think things sometimes show drugs feeling good, but it's always in a kind of like funny way. Like drugs make things goofy and fun.
Hey man.
Like
use.
that 70s show, The Basement Scenes, right?
Yes,
like,
yeah.
But really, like, for a lot of people and a lot of experiences are kind of this. They're a very. It can be a very spiritual, emotional thing to take drugs, right? It's not just like, oh, let's get fucked up and dick around at a party.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's so weird because this is arguably one of the most common experiences for drug use. It's why people use drugs, but 90% of what I see is that 70s show type of thing, or the like train spotting, scary baby on the ceiling nightmare.
Oh my god!
Fuel.
Yeah, exactly.
And so yeah, again, Saga doing the thing that makes the most sense, but it's totally subverting expectations.
All right, on that, I think we can move. Yep,
I'm coming down now. Let's move on.
Also, though, just generally, before we get into this scene is such a interesting narrative choice to follow up to the drug scene. And we can talk about that more, but it is just keep that in mind as I'm summarizing. It is so compelling. So we see Hazel with like glowing stars around her, and we see her talking. It's fucking cute when kids talk. And she says, "So pity." Because she pities these poor stars, obviously.
Yep, that's it.
But she's in a dance studio, kind of following these stars as Marco and what's her name again?
We
Ginny?
saw the
Ginny.
I'm guessing that was what was on the Ginny.
Yeah. Are standing watching and kind of having parent talk. Marco's saying that he hopes this will get her to sleep through the night. And then Ginny says that her partner is busy on the road all the time. And then Hazel interrupts to point at Ginny and say her is ugly. And Marco kind of tries to parent and tell her not to say that, to which Hazel replies, "No, thank you." She's just got so much Alana in her. And then we see Marco kind of stumbling and say, I apologize. Obviously, you're not what she said. And they kind of just talk a little about parenting and clearly flirt a little. And then Ginny says, they're talking about kids, and they say they only learn by example. Dance with me. And Marco says, only maybe if I was at a wedding and I was blackout drunk, but otherwise no.
Mm-hmm.
But Ginny talks Marco into it and asks Marco's name, and my fucking heart shatters into 10 million pieces. Because Marco says that his name is Bar. After also Ginny said, you have to be brave before you can be good. And Marco says, my father used to say that. And then Ginny says, nice to meet you, Bar, as they're all kind of dancing together. And we get some Hazel narration that says, also just like fucking amazing transitional Hazel narration looking forward. But admit it, you're probably a very different person at work than you are at home.
Mm-hmm. Which, you know what I just realized? That
What?
The you have to be brave before you can be good.
That's the Blue phrase, right?
That was Blue. We hadn't actually seen that.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
really
I realized that as I was reading it now.
Yeah.
Like literally as I was summarizing.
Yeah, same. But yeah, no, this scene is, which I do want to qualify here because you said they flirt a bit, but I think that Marco is just being Marco. Like I don't see any intention of
that
flirting.
is true.
And I think that it's one of those things where it's like Marco's just being his sincere and thoughtful self, and that can very easily be interpreted as flirting, but it's also how he treats everyone.
I'm gonna push back on that though, because speaking as a grown adult who knows what flirting is and definitely is not socially stunted on these situations.
Yeah.
But the like, under no circumstances, maybe if this were a wedding and I was blackout drunk, that is 100% some flirtatious joking.
I think it can also be interpreted as him being bluntly honest. Like I'm remembering the whole was him telling Alana like, "Oh, your hips
Oh my god, yeah.
like,
yeah. Are way bigger.
Are way bigger than Gwendolyn," where it's just like him just being honest, but it's actually the most like socially inept thing for him to say at that moment, but he thinks he's nailing it. and so yeah, I think it could go either way. I but at this point I don't sincerely think that Marco's trying to get laid or anything. Like,
no, I don't think he's trying to get laid, but I also don't think flirting means you're trying to get laid.
Yeah.
But
this is true.
I think it's super compelling because you're basically juxtaposing an Alana transgression and putting it right next to a Marco transgression of sorts, right?
Yeah.
Especially when he goes and dances, which again, also though, like, it's not like that big of a deal. But
it is in the context when we know they're going to break up.
Yes,
as
exactly.
Established.
We've established these emotional stakes that are different, right?
Yeah, and this gets into what I said during the last scene where this establishes how it turns the tables and keeps me 100% invested in a way that I did not expect. I want to just touch on the absolute brilliance of the fact that this book hurts you so much with character deaths. Like every volume, we lose the stock, we lose Bar, we lose Heist, and it is just devastating.
You're missing the most devastating character death of all.
Fart's still alive. We know he's alive. He got off on the comment.
Okay, good. Okay,
good. and so we, but at this point, you start to be like, okay, I am I am guarding myself. I am bracing myself for deaths. At this point you're like, okay, this book is trying to hurt me with these deaths. So it's not going to I'm going to assume that everyone could die at any second. And then it's like, "Oh yeah. Well, fuck you." Because we're gonna make you feel emotionally invested and terrified with the death of a relationship and just this totally different emotional manipulation that is, in my opinion, more terrifying than an actual death in this book.
And it's done so well because you like Ginny.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's not like she's this, like, a lot of the time, like people that people have affairs with, or like the other person in pop culture is depicted as like by the nature of the story depicted as unlikable. But like when I'm reading this, I'm like
seductress or something. The Mariah Reynolds.
I'm like I love Marco and Alana, but also I mean I kind of like Marco and Ginny.
I don't, Noah. Don't get out of here with that slander. How dare you? But yeah, no, this is heartbreaking to me in a way that so few, especially comics, are, where it's just from a relationship perspective of like, oh, I would be devastated if my if I found out that my wife, who is like, I think it's very important that we have not seen Marco and Alana together in this issue, and we have seen his sort of disappointment in her being gone, and not necessarily like a judging disappointment, but just like, oh, she's not here, and we're growing this distance in our minds, and then we're seeing them go in these different directions from each other and not discussing it with each other, and like especially with the whole her just doing a hard drug when they have like the kid at home, and him dancing with another woman privately.
Well, and to the point that we were talking about earlier with kind of like Saga gives you these monoliths and then deconstructs them. It's like like the like kind of idyllic monogamous relationship, they're pushing back on that, right? Where like the first 3 arcs are kind of like almost like, oh well, if you find the one, you'll be happy with everything, and you'll fight through war zones, and you'll do anything for each other. And now it's like, yeah, but also relationships aren't quite like that. Sometimes you get crushes on other people. Sometimes you'll really like doing drugs and like don't want to tell your partner about that. Like it's suddenly this relationship where like any of the fights that they didn't even really have fights, like the conflicts they had before this arc were very situational on this is what we need to do. It's very much like, I'm willing to mercy kill our child so that she's not tortured.
Yeah.
And it's like that's not an actual fight that you have with somebody, hopefully. I mean, unfortunately, that probably is a fight that some people have, but let's not put that fucking dour note on this podcast.
Yeah.
But now it's just like very real things of just like, oh, like you're spending too much time with our child's like dance instructor, and oh, you're tied up in drugs, right? Like these are just very like ground level real world conflicts.
Yeah. I mean, like literally spending too much time apart and drugs. I would say between those two things, like a good at least 70-80% of relationships have dealt with these issues.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the thing that gives this so much gravity and the thing that makes this so terrifying is that the love is the thing we've taken for granted the most, because it was the catalyst. It was the thing that has propelled this whole thing to the point that Hazel is just the physical embodiment of that relationship, this relationship that was not meant to be and is the crux of the whole thing, and that's why they're fleeing for their lives, is because they needed to be in this relationship. And then it's like, oh yeah, and now because of minor human things it's falling apart. And yeah, it is absolutely heartbreaking.
And now, should we move to a completely different scene?
Yeah, let's wrap it up with this short little scene here. Let's see if anything of import happens. We'll find out.
I doubt it. We've been through so much in this comic already.
So to remind you of that HTN, we had admit it, you're probably a very different person at work than you are at home, and then we get an establishing shot of the robot kingdom, which apparently the kingdom itself is a floating city, BioShock Infinite style, but it's castles. And the narration continues. Everyone needs to be someone else sometimes. We cut to Princess Robot holding their son, looking at a portrait, their wedding portrait of Prince Robot 4 and her in her wedding dress. She's singing a lullaby to the child. And here's a click as someone comes in the room, turns around. She has a big heart, like an anatomically correct heart on her face.
But it's like an anatomically correct heart that's stylized to look like a cartoon heart.
Like in the shape of a heart. Yeah. And she says, 4, is that you? And we see a familiar janitor that we were introduced to briefly in the last issue. Says, nah, just one of your lowly subjects. Really quick, because we've established that people are British here, do you think he has a Cockney accent? Because I really want him to have Dengo to have a Cockney accent.
Yeah, no, I'm all right with that.
Just one of your lowly subjects. Mary Poppins. That works.
Oh, God.
So I'm going to skip
we'll
that for
go
now.
with that. Actually, my headcanon is going to be him not having a Cockney accent, but him having Dick Van Dyke doing a Cockney accent as his accent.
The thing that is really quick, the dumbest tangent, the thing that has bothered me about that film for years is Dick Van Dyke plays 2 characters in that film. The second one is an old British banker, and as that character, his accent is flawless. And I don't fucking understand it because his other accent is pure garbage. Anyway, so he says, I've been your custodian here. I'm just Australian now for some reason. I've been your custodian for nearly 2 years and you don't even know my name, is what he says. And then, of course, Princess Robot screams for help, and he unsheaths from he's carrying a broom, and there is a hidden blade in this broom, and he says, no need to wake the baby princess. I gave your palace guards the night off, and the blade is covered in blood. Oh. She asks him not to hurt the baby, and he says, I would never harm a child. I'm a father. And then there's a black and white image of a balloon floating away on a screen.
God.
And he says, at least I was for a time. And we get an absolutely amazing monologue. He pulls up a chair and says, I want you to listen to me. His name was, how do you say this name? Yoakum?
Yoakum Jokum?
Yoakum Jokum. Sock'em boppers.
I'm a Yoakum. I'm a Jokum. I'm a midnight Jokum.
More drugs.
That's a little dad rock joke for those of you who came here from Polyphonic.
I think we can whittle that down to just a dad joke. But speaking of dads, and not speaking of jokes, he continues that he talks about his son. He loved stories about funny animals and sometimes monsters if they weren't too scary. Every night he gave me an extra kiss to put in my pocket before I left for work.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Which I also love that establishes he works the night shift.
You can't do that to me.
Yeah. So this is, keep in mind, we're like 2.5 pages in here. And already this is fucking amazing. And he says that when he was 4, his child got diarrhea after drinking water from their village's stream. But when he went to the doctor said that there's nothing they could do with him for commoners without insurance. And the princess says, I'm very sorry. And he interrupts.
Oh, God.
You can die from diarrhea is apparently a thing. You can literally shit yourself to death. It almost sounds comical, but it's actually very common.
Fun fact, that's the leading cause of death on Earth.
Huh.
Dysentery.
That adds up. And he says, that's very common. Our funeral director assured me. I'm just going to read this one verbatim. I wish I could read all of this verbatim, but I won't. He says, I was with my son the day he died, his empty belly swollen like a balloon ready to burst. Princess, do you know what Yoakum's last words were? And she says, what? And then we turn the page, and we get nearly a full splash of him taking the blade and running it straight through her head.
Dengo Unchained, baby!
And that's the end of the podcast. Am I shitting?
Is that
Goodbye,
a totally appropriate response?
Thank you for at least moving away from the mic. If you could just move to another room though next time, that would be doing me a big favor.
I'll do that next. I'll do that next episode.
Thank you. So anyway, a princess gets stabbed in the face, and he, in reference to what his kid's last words were, he says, "I forget." And we get the shot of the baby's now crying. He picks up the baby, says, "I'll never hurt you. You have a very important job. You're going to help every child in the robot kingdom, regardless of bloodline, and you won't have to do it all on your own. But a future king deserves more than allies." And while he's talking, he passes the dead guards outside of the room, walks down the hall to the servants' quarters, and there's a sign on the servants' quarters that says, "Night staff, quiet please, watching our stories. Future king deserves more than allies. He deserves an audience." And we get our final splash of a bunch of dead alligator butlers and maids sitting around a TV screen. And they are watching the open circuit, or we're watching, rather, the open circuit. And so it seems like Dengo's going to make his way to the open circuit. And I think that some lines will cross.
I love the way that they kind of set up and foreshadow the crossing lines there.
Yes.
Like, maybe they will happen, maybe they won't, but...
Especially since we're seeing that green superhero and not Alana.
Yeah.
I feel like Alana would be the obvious choice, but it's like... Yeah, there's just enough of a disconnect there.
Like even if these characters might not cross paths, it's letting us know that these worlds are definitely going to intersect, right?
Yep, yeah. So yeah, this scene is fucking amazing. Absolutely amazing. We've had like a scene and then a fraction of a scene with Dengo, and he's already this complex, amazing, just villain, but like such a justified one.
Yeah. Yeah. This is such a good issue. This is
such a good issue.
This is such a fucking dense issue.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, when fucking, when Prince Robot on Sextillion getting a blowjob from a beaver is like probably the least enthralling scene in the issue. Like, Jesus Christ.
I will be back in 1 second. I've been trying to hold out, but this episode is going long and I really need to pee.
You beer drinker. Go for it. So welcome to the Fard Radio Hour with your new host, Jonathan O. Roselion. So today we're going to talk about why Fard is overrated, and I'm glad he died. So we all know that, a lot of people have been writing to me saying, John, we know that you only don't like Fard because he resembles you so accurately, your physical body, and it's like looking in a tiny mirror. And you know what? I'm not ashamed to say yes, I look nearly identical to Fard's naked body. But that, that just endears me to him more. Why would I resent someone? I love me, I just think that, Fard was not an intellectual like myself, and he's giving my body type a bad name. What, just because your ballsack reaches your ankles, you can't put a fucking sentence together without a translation ring? I don't think so. No. We're not like that. We're not hashtag not all fards. That's what I'm saying. And so this is why I think that, under new management, the Fard Radio Hour is
How dare you? This is my baby. You are not allowed to commandeer the Fard Radio Hour. Do you know how much blood, sweat, tears, and giant semen has gone into it?
Hey, Noah, what else is happening? What's up with this scene? This is a good scene.
So, just generally, what we were talking about earlier with Sextillion, the establishing shot, they don't need to tell you it's the Robot Kingdom.
Yeah, we've never seen this establishing shot. Like, we didn't even know it was in the sky.
Yeah, we had no idea this is what it looked like, but they show you with a statue of a robot. That is... Like,
it's like a robed, almost like a Socrates
like a monk
statue.
Yeah. That is the epitome of that's what they mean when they say show don't tell.
Yep.
Right? Like, that's just an establishing shot that is showing us where we are.
Yep.
Yeah, and then just the heart's wonderful.
What a fucking perfect iconic weapon to have, and just to embody this entire character, to have a concealed sword in a broom, push broom. It's brilliant.
The single balloon flying away when he says, "I was a father for a time." It's like so on the nose, but I'm so fucking about it.
No, it's fucking amazing. Also, just some small details. I love that the room is candlelit, and we see the sort of candelabra, but it is the candlesticks themselves are glowing, and it's not an actual flame.
Oh my god, and I did not notice that.
Yeah, it's just a glowing candlestick.
Yeah.
Also, I cannot stress enough, again, something that maybe don't seek out if you don't want to be bummed out, but do seek it out if you want just to see an amazing execution of an execution. But she is in a rocking chair. The motion we get in this shot, where her rocking chair is pushed back, his chair is flying back from him getting up so quickly. That shows you how quickly this is all happening. Like the candlesticks are being like not knocked over, but like swaying from the force of his movement. And it has such a shocking, like, immediacy, like a cobra strike. It is so cool.
And part of that shocking immediacy is narratively too. Just like you don't think this is going to happen. You don't think he's about to just like blatantly kill like a character who we don't know like in the terms of the story, she's probably a C-lister, but she's very important in the universe, and she is the most important person in the world to an A-lister, right?
Yeah. And also just and the setup for that, again, it's the left page, turn page, immediate, like, top of it, like, obviously perfect placement. But then they lead into that page with an open question of him saying, "Do you know what the last words were?" So you have not only, like, are you bracing yourself for anything? Like, you're not bracing yourself for anything, but you are just straight up, you have no reason to expect that he's not just going to say what that is, and that's the next thing
you're expecting some kind of, like, bomb one-liner that'll break your heart, right?
Yeah. And it's just, I forget.
Which is also a bomb one-liner that breaks your heart.
Yeah. He is such a fucking immediately... Is this, I mean, like, Heist is up there, but I think this might be, like, in terms of immediate investment and fascination.
Oh my god, yeah.
This is such a spot-on character introduction. And also it's exciting because we're just in all this nuance and stuff. Like, he is still a nuanced character, but we are just getting a straight-up villain right now, which is so exciting for this. Especially when we've sort of empathized so much with all the other quote-unquote villains, with the Will and Prince Robot. Like, the fact that we're just getting, like, oh, this guy's just gonna fuck shit up is so exciting.
But I totally empathize with him.
100%, yeah. But just in terms of role in the story, like he's going to fuck shit up invariably.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is an interesting. Maybe this is. I mean, this podcast is already going long, so it might be a dialogue for another day.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's really interesting, like humanizing villains, but still making them villains is a really, really compelling. It's a really compelling kind of like. It's a balancing act, right? Like,
yeah, no, the thing that like is so interesting to me about this is that he's not unlike Prince Robot and the Will, who do things to make them likable. He's not his personality is not likable. That's not, I mean, it's the opposite of the Will, where it's like his morality is garbage, but he's such a likable person in how he acts. This is the polar opposite, where he's just where he is like, he's done nothing to endear us to him personality wise, but just purely based on his political position right now, and his moral position right now. This is literally just eat the rich. Like, this is, and exactly. I agree with him 100%. I don't agree with his way of taking care of it necessarily, but where he's coming from is so fucking relevant and so fucking great.
And I think this is the thing. You get that a little bit when he stabs the princess. Then you pull back and you see he stab the guards, and you're a little more wary about it. Yeah. And in the final splash, you see he stabbed 3 people who are also, as far as we've been able to establish in robot society, just like pretty much pure working class victims, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, basically, you immediately get the idea that he's radical in a sense of he has a strong moral foundation, but it doesn't matter what gets in the way or who gets in the way of that. And that's something that, like, you just can't abide by, right?
Yeah. And also we get this great little bookend of like something that makes this scene so heartbreaking is that we get that cold open and we know that Prince Robot is eventually gonna probably sober up and realize, like, this is the worst outcome for his actions and his neglect. So,
God,
so compelling.
And this is the second issue of the arc.
Oh, we're fucking in it now. We are fucking like
we are balls deep. Giant swinging fard balls deep.
It's because I think that third arc is so fucking good, but I think it sacrifices certain things to do other things, in terms of pacing and in terms of just what is emotional investment and everything, and like lack of action and stuff. And I think like we're getting into Saga hits this stride where it's like it doesn't need to sacrifice anything. It just does everything perfectly.
This is the thing. It's like, oh, well, our main characters aren't having a bunch of action. Let's introduce another subplot that is completely relevant to everything going on and is heavy on the action.
Fucking yeah. No, it is. It's glorious. It's fantastic. Noah,
what a fucking issue.
What's your favorite moment in this?
I mean, like, it's gotta be fuck yes, right?
I'm going with something different, so that's perfect.
Are you going with Hazel bringing Isabel back into herself?
No, that's also fucking amazing, but I'm going with something different. So you're going with fuck yes on this one?
I gotta go. Yeah. Can I do just this whole 2-page spread as my moment?
It is great comic book craftsmanship. It is.
Yeah.
For the most ridiculous thing, I love it to death. I'm going with just Dengo's introduction scene here. Like, it is. I'm trying to think of, because I wanted
like
to be
like the conversation here with him, like pulling up the chair and the bloody knife and the
conversation and the climax of that conversation. And I think that as an introduction, which I know it's technically a second scene, but it was so fleeting before. Like, that was literally just to be so we recognized them in this scene. but we could have even gone without that scene technically. Like this would still make perfect sense. But I was trying to think of like a parallel of like, oh, what? I mean, we compare these dialogue heavy scenes a lot to Tarantino, especially when it's like dialogue, sudden violence. But even then, I can't think of another thing that is on this level of effectiveness and this is just like immediate attachment to this character and excitement for whatever the fuck's gonna happen.
It's such a
fantastic.
fucking
It's flawless.
masterpiece.
Noah, song. You got one?
I mean, I have like 3 dozen.
What drug songs you got for me, Noah?
Yeah, no, that might be what I'm going for. I think that I gotta narrow down. So give me your song and I will narrow down.
Okay. So based on, of course, the Fuck Yes and the Gooey letters, I'm gonna go with Gooey by Glass Animals, which is by far the best song I have suggested on this podcast. Also go check out, they just released a new song for the first time in 3 years and I'm fucking pumped about it. But Glass Animals is the end all, like enjoyable drug stuff for me, like non-nightmare inducing drug stuff.
I'm gonna go with, and I feel like this is okay. There's a psychedelic scene. It feels way too cliched to do a Beatles song, but I'm gonna do a Beatles song.
Do.
But I'm not gonna do like "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds" or something like that. Like a severely underrated Beatles song and a phenomenal drug song that isn't actually even about drugs at all. Blue Jay Way.
Okay.
Oh my god.
All right.
Put the scene on and listen to Blue Jay Way and consume whatever your substance of choice is. But it's this phenomenal song because it's like weird and moody and very trippy, but also just like about like your friends being late to show up to your party, and just like worrying about them. It's a severely underrated Beatles song and just such a weird, trippy song.
Yeah, good fucking choice. Although I think you should have gone with... Wait, no, I think it's already on the playlist. That fucking Tomorrow Never Knows Phil Collins cover.
Oh my god.
Go back to that one on the playlist and listen to that one too. Wait, oh shit, I could also just add a duplicate of that. No. We'll
Know what drugs make a lot better? Music. That's when you play the question of the week music.
No fucking way. Here's what I do it though.
Oh, fuck you.
Music, the silence. Hey Noah, do you have a question in mind? I have I didn't have a good one for this one.
I have two good questions.
Ooh, then you cover it this week then. I have my like do it anytime question.
One of them I might need to run by our legal team.
Okay.
What's a fuck yes moment you've had with drugs?
I was considering that one. I like that one.
Are you our legal team though? Can I run this by you?
Yeah.
How will the courts take this?
Well, we're very lax about drug use here, and the thing is, as long as it gets to Supreme Court eventually, especially if Trump gets to appoint another person, we're gonna be good.
Name.
We're gonna be good.
Fucking sully our beautiful podcast. So, what's a time that you ate a cupcake that just really felt good?
See, I have not had a cupcake that has gotten me.
Well, no, that was the euphemism.
That was illegal. No. It's specifically, I'm changing the question to what is the time you had a pot cupcake?
I've never had a pot cupcake.
See, that was the thing. That's why I had to.
I don't
follow
do
this
drugs.
thread.
I'm a good Christian. I don't do drugs, and I haven't had sex because I'm not yet married.
This is what the intervention is about: is that you're so fucking lame, Noah, and I want you to do some drugs. All right. What's your second question?
All right, this one is a bit broader, but give me your open circuit pitch.
Okay.
Like, what's the premise?
Yeah.
Or if you just want an open circuit character, that's fine too. If you want to like draw up or describe a character design, also like please, if you want to draw one up, I'm sure there's artists out there. Draw us a fucking open circuit character. That would be amazing.
Oh yeah.
But otherwise, just like a pitch of your premise for the show. Because I'm fucking all about the open circuit.
I like it. I'm gonna add a question here. What do you think your own voice sounds like in reality?
I'm gonna fucking murder you.
What do you think Noah's voice sounds like? No. All right, that's our questions of the week. Hey Noah, where can people find you?
That's my response to your voice. People can find me on Twitter at Watch Polyphonic. Follow me there. I'm closing in on the big 5K. 5,000 followers, and by closing in, I mean I only have 400 to go.
Oh.
You can watch me on YouTube at youtube.com/c/polyphonic. This week I've got the longest video I've ever made coming out on Beyonce. So if you want nearly 20 full minutes of polyphonic, I mean you just got like an hour and a half of me shooting the shit. So you should be able to do 20 minutes. God damn it. Now I have the hiccups.
We're going to have to redo this episode, Noah. You fucked it up.
Yep. From the top. Hey, I'm Noah, and this is Horns and Wings.
Drugs! Drugs! Dengo Unchained! There, that's the whole episode.
Yeah, no, but seriously, yeah. Or go to Nebula. It's a streaming service where, it's not YouTube. That's all that I should really have to say to sell it to you. What about you, John?
You know what? I'm skipping my signal boost this week just because we just had American Thanksgiving here, and I just wanted to say really quick how fucking thankful I am and how insanely lucky we are. So many people, that it is the goal of so many creators.
This is awkward. I thought you were going to say you were thankful for me.
Let me get to it, Noah. So many creators are like, the goal is to have just a cool audience, the people who like your stuff, ideally, a true creator, I like to say. And it is just so incredible, like it just, even like editing the question video together and stuff, it is just so cool that we have this audience that can interact with us, isn't a bunch of dicks, just sincerely cool people, and it's already fucking rad that I get to talk to a friend once a week for a disgustingly long time that no one should listen to for this amount of time. This is a normal episode. It's a fucking hour and 40 minutes, but it is just it's so we're fucking blessed to have such an amazing audience, and thank you for hanging out. Go check out the Discord. Link is fucking somewhere, I think in the I put it in the description of all the YouTube videos, so go click on that link and you can join the Discord. And yeah, y'all are amazing, and I love you a bunch. And Noah, I love you too. You're the fucking best. Thanks for doing this thing with me. It's fun.
You're the fucking best. Thanks for doing this thing with me. I love you too. This is wonderful.
Fucking original, Noah. Jesus Christ.
Okay, first of all.
Of course. Thank you to Fiona Staples, Brian K. Vaughn, Photographics Image Comics, for making the platform upon which we can build our friendship foundation. And Noah, I'll bless you with this outro, because that's what friends are for.
There's gonna be a new sign off this week.
Shit.
We're gonna go with a fuck yeah.
Bye.
Am I shitty?